Good morning. Welcome to Morning Mindfulness Minutes with Mrs. Robinson. This is me, Mrs. Robinson, and we are on, I believe, number 4, talking about dealing with anger. So today I'm going to be talking about why. Why did you become so angry? When did it happen? So were you born that way? Did it begin in childhood, as a teenager, as an adult? Maybe it was a result of a mental problem or disability. Maybe it was a physical illness. Maybe it was a drug or alcohol issue. It could have been any of those things. You really have to decide, where did it start for you, okay? And we're not talking about this to look for an excuse. Like, oh, the reason why I was mad because, I was drinking too much. Or the reason I was mad was because, my mom or my dad or whatever. But it usually helps that when you're trying to solve a problem or to improve an anger issue, it helps to know where it came from, when it started. And once you can get down to the root of it, then you can really start making some changes and making things better in your life once you know where it came from, okay? The most common cause of severe anger is from growing up in an angry home. You're modeling what your parents or guardians, whoever raised you, did with you. If they were angry, if they were always annoyed, always irritated, always frustrated, always paranoid, always, agitated, then you learn to be that way too. If they used anger to get what they want, then you learned over time to use anger to get what you want. And let's go back to what anger really is. Anger, like I said in my first and second, I usually repeat this in all my episodes. Anger is not a bad thing. Anger is not a bad thing. Everybody gets angry. Everybody gets upset. But there's different levels to it. Okay, if you're getting angry and you're mad for a little while, then you bounce back, you're fine. If you get upset for a little while and you use that to propel you into a better solution, better answer to whatever problem that was, then it's fine. Because really, anger is a signal. It's a warning signal. It tells you that something is wrong, and it gives you the opportunity to do something about it. Now, sometimes people use that anger, which is a warning signal, as a solution as well. But it can only be a warning signal. It can't be used as a solution effectively, okay? So going back to family and growing up in an angry household and learning that that's how you get what you want. Now, it might have started with, your mom or your dad or whoever raised you, talking loudly. And then eventually that didn't get any attention. Then maybe it went to them yelling. And then soon after that, that didn't get them anywhere. And then they had to act a little crazy. They started throwing pots and pans and other objects around the house. They started, doing crazy looking stuff. And then even after a while, that didn't give them the control, or that didn't give them the attention or whatever, the power that they needed. So then it turned into, smacking you around or other people, and they using violence. Because they said, because when you're angry, every level has an amount of time that it lasts before you go on to the next level. Okay, so just because you can start off doing this for a little while, if you're an angry person, it just escalates and escalates and escalates. And if you're doing this in a family with other children and people watching, they learn that this is how it's supposed to be. This is normal. It's not normal if we're not arguing. It's not normal if mom is not throwing a wine glass at the door. It's not normal if dad is not, kicking someone out of his way so we can get to the television. It's not normal if these things don't happen. But to learn now, when you are now an angry person, that the reason why you are like this is because of that. So it kind of lets you know, oh, that's the problem. That's why I'm like this. That's when it started. So okay, this is the reason why. Now I can fix it. I have a starting point, okay? All right, another thing, if you're a victim, which I know there's like, a thing out, on the whole, using the word victim, survivor. Let's say that. If you're a survivor of sexual, physical, emotional abuse, that can in turn cause you to be an angry person, okay? You survive the abuse, but you're really damaged because of it, all right? And maybe you didn't do what you needed to do to take care of that shame. Let's talk about that for a little bit. To take care of that shame that you might have felt that might still be residing in you right now. I'm going to read a definition. Oh, again, we're going off this book. Angry all the time. Angry all the time. An Emergency Guide to Anger Control by Ron Potter-Efron. Okay. Now, in his book, he defines shame, and he says, shame means feeling bad about ourselves, our whole selves, not just what we do, but who we are. Okay, so this goes pretty deep. And a shamed person tells themselves practically 5 things. I'm no good. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable or loved. I don't belong. I shouldn't even be alive. That's a lot. And since people who were in these situations of those multiple kinds of abuse sometimes feel that shame itself can turn into other things. It can turn into self-hatred. It can turn into, being a person who is an anger avoider, because when they feel anger, that makes them feel shame. So they avoid the anger, even if it's something they should be rightly so angry about. But they avoid it because they don't want to feel that shame that always comes with it. Also, in some of these survivors, or some would call victims, there's some that strike out a lot because they feel so much shame that anything you say can touch on that shame and make them angry or upset. So, like I said in the beginning, people who've gone through these situations, of course, I'm not saying everybody, maybe some people didn't have this response, but it's trauma. It is trauma, and it's something that can be resolved through lots of counseling, talk therapy, and there's other things that you can do. But mostly it can resolve through therapy or counseling or something like that. And that might be something you want to think about if this is something that you're dealing with. If the reason why you're so angry stems from, an abusive childhood, or it doesn't have to be a childhood. It could have happened when you're an adult. An abusive adulthood, an abusive incident that might have happened. It doesn't have to be ongoing. It could have been a one-time thing, but still, it's trauma, okay? And lastly, people who have suffered through, a traumatic experience sometimes become abusers themselves. People also use drugs and alcohol to cure, maybe, their anger problem. Or they might use drugs and alcohol as an excuse for their anger issue. Oh, the only reason why I acted that way was because I was drunk. Or I said that only because I was high. Or I did this only because such and such and so and so. You are responsible for your actions at all times. And even if you maybe blacked out and didn't remember exactly what you did, you still were responsible for that action because you made that choice to drink that much. You made that choice to smoke that, to shoot that in your arm, to sniff that. That was your choice. So the actions that came out of that choice is also your responsibility, okay? And especially, and if you are already an angry or paranoid or irritable or aggravated person, these substances do not improve the situation. They only make it worse. Sometimes, not only do they make it worse, but for some people, they use it as a way to avoid the fact they even have the problem. And it kind of helps them push it down. They keep pushing it down, pushing it down, until eventually one day they explode. They keep avoiding. It's kind of they're called anger avoiders. They avoid anger issues so that they can pretend to have some sense of normalcy as people, even though inside they might be, in full rage. But so they use these substances to try to do that. The substance doesn't cure it. It might just push it down. And for everybody, it actually doesn't do that. For everybody, it doesn't make them mellow. Let's talk about marijuana. That is kind of like the known drug to make you mellow, calm you down, maybe make you a little bit happy. But truth be told, that's not the case for everybody. Marijuana doesn't make everybody mellow. It doesn't make everybody happy. It has different effects on different people. And even so, the use of marijuana increases your paranoia. So let's say you were a little bit paranoid before you started smoking, and now you've been smoking for X amount of years, X amount of whatever. That'll only make that worse. And if you are angry and you're smoking marijuana, that can make your anger worse as well. It doesn't stop anger. And actually, in some cases, it did the exact opposite of making a person mellow. It made them angrier, more excited, more paranoid, more all that bad stuff. And it adds to the anger. So that's only one of the drugs we're going to be talking about today. But moving on, Lastly, we're going to talk about physical and emotional illness, which can also be contributing to your anger. Chronic pain. You've had severe back pains or severe, body aches. That can make you more irritable. That can make you more frustrated. That can make you more upset, which could add to your anger, maybe bring it out more often than not. You also have, maybe PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. People who came back from, war situations, or nowadays, people with PTSD are being diagnosed who never left America, who never fought for the country, and they're still getting diagnosed with it because it's all about trauma, right? And that's something I talked about before. Trauma. And trauma is something like, trauma is in the eye of the beholder. Okay? So just because one thing is traumatic to one person, it might not be traumatic to another, and vice versa. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. So PTSD is something that could accentuate your anger, medications with side effects, brain injuries, PMS. Let's talk a little bit about PMS. PMS is something that usually comes during the time of your menstrual cycle for our women. But all women do not get PMS, guys. It is not a thing that every single woman gets. And it's not, even if someone does get it, they might not get it every month. They might get it every other month. It really depends. And if you have PMS, I know I've experienced it. And it does make you extremely irritable, frustrated, easily agitated, which could lead to being angry more often than not. So super lastly, before I get to my suggestions at the end, we're living, depending where you're watching from, but in American society, you kind of grow up believing or kind of knowing that everything is it's very super competitive. It's a super competitive society, and they kind of encourage you to rival against others and kind of encourage you to be the best, to try to be number one. It encourages you, you're encouraged to always be on your guard, always watching out, always trying to achieve goals, maybe solely by yourself. So because you're thinking everybody is trying to, take something away from you. It's kind of ingrained in some of us that we need to have that control. And in a society like that, kind of encourages some anger responses because they feel as if you're getting what you want, then maybe it's not a bad thing. Okay. Lastly, what I'm going to talk about is there are 3 things that you want to consider changing if you want to start working on your anger problem. Drugs and alcohol have got to go. Got to go. Okay? And I know that's its own thing. That's like its own thing. I know. You're going to need some assistance. Some people do go cold turkey, but that might not be your thing. You might need some help, which is okay. Number 2, get a physical and mental health checkup to see if there's any underlying issues that you're not aware of. Number 3, watch who you hang out with. If you're hanging out with angry people, they're either going to encourage you to be angry or help you make excuses for why you are angry. So, which is something that, if you've been hanging out with the same kind of people and you're not really sure how to make new friends, that's another thing too. But it's definitely is possible. All right. So thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe. Hit that little button below and click on that bell so you can get notifications. I do another show on either Wednesdays or Fridays called Mindful Munching with Mrs. Robinson. I went back and forth with a few names for that one, but that's what it is. So please check that out. One's coming out on Wednesday, so please look out for it. And also, like I said before, please subscribe and like and all that good stuff and share. So thank you again for watching. Hope to see you guys soon and have a great day.